The default workbench size can be limiting sometimes, so let's make them the size we want. To modify a workbench, we need to modify the tile it's on. A tile is a square section of the map, and some of these tiles have multiple workbenches on them. Here's a picture of all the tiles that have a workbench, the workbench locations, and the tile's file name. A high-resolution version is linked in the description. To make these changes, we need to edit the XML of the tile. I'm going to modify the starter base workbench for this tutorial. Navigate to your game's install directory. The default location is Program Files x86, Steam, steamapps, Common, Stormworks, ROM, Data, Tiles. This is where every tile in the game is located, and the tile I'm looking for is named island12.xml. Note that some of these names have underlines between the words and numbers, and some don't. Now open the file with the text or code editor and search for the words edit_area. This is all the build zone information between the edit area tags. This first line that reads edit_area ID equals edit1 grid_size 1 is the vehicle build zone. The transform line below is the position of the build zone on the tile, specifically the 30, 31 and 32 values. And the size line below that is the dimensions of the build zone. Also notice that there's an edit2 ID below the build zone data. This is actually the bed you sleep on at this base, so don't edit this data unless you want to be searching for an invisible bed when you need to sleep. First, let's change the size of the build zone. The most important thing you do here is change the grid size value to 0. No one knows what this controls, but if it's not set to 0 after you change the size of your build zone, it won't work. Now let's make this build zone a bit bigger. There's no real limit on how large the build zone can be, but the game won't allow building larger than 256 blocks in every direction per vehicle, so there's not much point going larger than 256 by 256 by 256. And I would advise only going up to 150 in one or two directions anyway. For now I'm going to set X to 20, Y to 50 and Z to 100. These dimensions relative to the arrow in the build zone are X for width, Y for height and Z for length. For these changes to take effect, you need to reload the save file to reload the tile data. Here we can see the build zone is taller and longer than the starter sheet allows, so it would be a good idea to move this zone out into the water. To do this, we change the values in the transform section. 30 moves along the x-axis or sideways, 31 moves along the y-axis or up and down, and 32 moves along the z-axis or back and forwards. For this tile, we want to move the build zone out into the water more along the z-axis so we don't clip into the shed, up along the y-axis so it's not clipping into the ground, and sideways away from the rocks along the x-axis. So I'll change the 30 or x-axis value to -10, which moves the zone to the left relative to the arrow at the bottom of the build zone. Then I'll change the 31 or y-axis value to 15, lifting the build zone up, and 32 or z-axis value to -100, moving the build zone out into the water. It's a bit of goofing around until you get your bearings which way is which. You might also see some other numbers in the transform tags like 00, 02, 20 or 22. These control the editor's 3D matrix and are not as straightforward as moving and resizing X, Y and Z, so I recommend leaving them alone. Otherwise it's the same process on every workbench. Thanks for watching, leave us a like and I'll see you later.